So it's time to leave the waking world behind and enter the nightmare realm of Fatal Frame 3 yet again.
Either way, it'll all be over soon.
So as we head into Hour 12, we find ourselves back in control of Kei, and it's time to put his plan into action by finding out where those stakes are. First though, we do want to pop back very quickly to where we first found that purifying candle, as there is an easily missed little file here from Amane. And even though it doesn't give too much additional information, it does paint an even more sadder picture of what ended up happening with Amane. She had honestly no ill intent and really just wanted to be with her brother and Reika happily ever after. Sadly though, that was never to be, and well, much like anybody else that was at the Kuze shrine, she met a very horrific end. But with that little side trick out of the way, we now have to find out where those stakes are. The good news is they aren't too difficult to find. We do know that the handmaidens needed to have quick access to the different stakes, so well, we know of all their different altar rooms, and that's where we're going to be heading. And the good news is that most of the altar rooms don't have any real problems of accessibility, but just due to the fact that the tattooed lady was near that particular altar room, we're going to go ahead and go into this one first. Now, even though we have visited these altars numerous times throughout the game, we are going to have Kei notice something that the other characters didn't notice, which is this little altar here. And inside, we find the stake we're looking for. The problem is that it is driven into the altar, and we have to do a little bit of a puzzle to get it out. Overall, though, this is a fairly simple puzzle all around. We just have to eliminate the shadow in the center by lighting these little candles around the outside. And by lighting these little candles, it'll shift the shadow around, and once there's no shadow, the stake will finally fall out. We just have to do that another 3 times.
Everyone's gonna die.
Yeah, the problem is there is a little bit of a roadblock. We heard that voice of one of the handmaidens, and if we try the door, we are sealed in. Now initially I know there's an enemy encounter in here, it's pretty obvious, but I forgot how to trigger it. And it's kinda simple once you think about it. You just gotta go into Viewfinder. But this time around it isn't a normal handmaiden. Somehow this one has gained the ability of flight, and that makes this even more difficult than before. While the handmaiden on the ground was already pretty fast, once they get into flight, they become incredibly faster, and their fatal frame moment is even smaller and much more difficult to deal with, as they will tend to swoop in very high over you, and sometimes they'll swoop in from behind you and grab you from behind, and well, especially as Kei, and especially dealing with the limitations of time that the candle brings in, you don't have a lot of time to waste.
You're a traitor, too.
The good news is that after we deal with her, we do get a new power lens for the camera, and possibly the most powerful lens in the game. The blow lens is, like I said, going to do the most damage, but it has a massive drawback, and that the damage is proportional to how much spirit points or spirit orbs you have. So if you have the maximum 6 or 7 spirit orbs and you have all those filled out, your shot will do the maximum amount of damage possible for that film type. But it will also expend all those points at once, and well, it does become kind of difficult, especially as Kei, to build up spirit orbs, so it's both his strongest and most situational. But we are going to have to hurry now, due to that little bit of backtracking I did to get that one document. As you can tell, we are running very, very close to running out of candle. The good news is there is one close by, but I think we have just enough time to go ahead and get into this altar room and get another stake. And the puzzles here don't really change that much. They add in a few additional things here and there. Such as in this particular puzzle, we really have to extinguish one of the flames to get the shadow to go the way we want to. But it's really just a situation of trial and error. It's not overly difficult to figure out. And the good news is we don't have to fight a handmaiden this time around. But we are now completely out of candles, so we need to rush to find a new one before that tattooed lady starts showing up to harass us. The good news is, as I stated before, there is one pretty close by. Back in this intersecting hallway here, where there was previously no candle, there is now a candle waiting for us on the box. And our next destination, our next altar room, is one that Miku ended up unlocking earlier. And the good news is we don't have to go down in her cramped little pathway to get there. Instead, we just have to go through that hanging wooden figure altar room from before. Well, that does mean another trek through this particular kimono room where you can probably guess someone is waiting for us.
Let you escape.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the last times we'll be fighting the woman brushing, and she yet again does not get any new abilities, but we do have a new ability.
You finally came.
It seemed like a really good time to use it.
Child. Kaname is...
And for our troubles of defeating her, we do get, I think, the final entry into her diary. And it doesn't really go into too much, it just really shines that light on the sense of abandonment, and more than likely what twisted her ghostly figure into harassing whomever came in, because she never got that love back from Akito or the child she had to abandon. And that's why she endlessly combed her hair and endlessly waited for people that were never going to come back, especially since we know that, well, the folklorist didn't so much abandon her as he was actually murdered by the head of the Kuze shrine. But you may notice that there is a slight distortion here. That's because there is a hidden ghost waiting in this closet. You do have to be quick, though, as it is easy to miss. Yeah, it's that young girl that accidentally killed her father that we haven't seen in quite a bit of time. But yeah, as you saw there, the blow lens just completely one-shotted the woman brushing, which would normally have taken upwards of about 8 or 9 fatal frames, so you can see just how useful it can be for very tough fights. But there is something to pay attention to as we head down to this door here. In the reflection, you may have noticed, yeah, someone by the door that we can't see here. But if we snap a shot, it reveals one of the trickier hidden ghosts in the entire Fatal Frame series. Yeah, this needle woman can be pretty easy to miss. As you could see there was nothing causing the camera to react, but that is a ghost for the spirit list, and one that is, as I said, incredibly easy to overlook. Now the problem right now, though, is if you look at my available Type 14 film, I'm running very, very low. I haven't had much of an opportunity to go pick up any of the stashes that I know are hiding about. But I think we should be able to take care of this needle woman as long as we get the fatal frames. And if you are wondering if you can just avoid her and not take that vanishing hidden ghost picture, not especially. Once you exit this room, she will trigger and start to chase after you. But we do find a new item waiting in this altar room, another refilling, purifying light. And it's especially nice, the sheer amount of these candles that are laying around in our path, because we are going to have to backtrack quite a bit in this update. Here we are in one of the other far-off altar rooms. And the new addition to this little stake puzzle is the fact that we are going to have to interact with both the left and right set of candles. But all in all, it doesn't make it any more difficult. There isn't really any penalty for getting this wrong. And there we go. Our 3 out of 4 down. But the 4th stake is pretty far away, and we do have a few optional things to get out of the way before we head down to that 4th stake. The first bit is purely optional, but as I said, I am running pretty low on film, and we did pick up a film reel in the previous update with Kei, so I figure kill 2 birds with 1 stone, pick up some film, and watch a little cinematic masterpiece labeled The Abyss. As with most of the movies, though, it isn't really clear what it might be, but it does seem somewhat familiar in regards to a location I think that Miku visited in a previous update. But the next optional bit to get out of the way is going to be back in the blinds room,
Over there.
where we first really fought Miss Takagawa before. And you might recall that she did take us by surprise in the closet over here with the doll. And on this night, we do find a hidden ghost waiting in the same relative location. Thankfully, it's not the doll, but it is a familiar person. It's the hidden ghost for Miss Takagawa, still cowering away in her guilt. But with that out of the way, I did take a little bit of damage. The random encounters were not very favorable to me on this night, so we're just going to go ahead and rush over to the next spot we need to go, which is Well, it's a little bit before the altar room that we need to head to. The sad thing is that with even the sheer amount of backtracking we have to do, we don't get too much new stuff in this update. And it's kind of a shame that at this point, even though we are kind of close to the end of the game has kind of run out of new stuff to show us. There's not too much left of the manor to explore, and it's kind of one of the many, many faults that the Fatal Frame games have had. Especially in regards to 2. Fatal Frame 2 really blew its load early on, and most of the game in that situation was just backtracking. But in this altar room, we do find another hidden ghost. One of the 4 handmaidens. I think that one is only available on New Game Plus. And while I've solved this final altar puzzle, I guess I should go ahead and point out the obvious outfit that Kei is wearing. The fox or kitsune ears are unlocked by, I think, just beating the game on hard, while the orange yukata that he's wearing requires beating the game on nightmare, so it is a little bit difficult, a little bit more difficult to obtain. But with that, we now have our 4th and final stake. Now it's merely a situation of finding out where the tattooed priestess is located.
We can still make it.
Now, even though we have seen her spirit roaming about, chasing us about, that's not what we have to use these stakes on. Instead, we're going to have to find where her corporeal body is, or her physical body, and the good news is that Miku did unlock the path that we need to go down towards in the previous update with the Mirror of Loss. But, as per usual, I do want to go ahead and fill up on a new purifying candle before we head too much further down. Definitely don't want to be caught in that miasma. Yeah, overall though, I do feel that Fatal Frame 3 is a bit better paced overall, not only with how it unveils the manor itself, but also with how it unveils the story. I think it does manage to keep itself going without having to resort to unnecessary backtracking or just stupid MacGuffins. I mean, in this case, it is pretty believable that both Kei and Rei have run out of any real options and are just kind of grabbing at whatever straws they can grab at in some hopes of not dying in their sleep. As we head down what is called, I think, the last passage. See if we can't find ourselves further along than where Miku found herself swallowed up before.
There's no escape. Sleep, priestess, lie in peace. Sleep.
We definitely find ourselves in a similar location, a bit further down in that weird abyss that we found ourselves in before as Miku, but no handmaids waiting for us, just some weird rambling chanting in the background.
How could you lead a man to accusation?
It seems we have worked up the ire of the head of the Kuze family, but as we have fought her quite a few times before, yet again, she has no new additional tricks, just honestly way too much health. but I did manage to pick up pretty much every little bit of Type 14 film I could on our backtracking journey here. And really, you don't even have to wait for Fatal Frame opportunities. It does help, but it doesn't hurt just to keep pecking away at her with your massive, massive damage as Kei. You can really see, though, that it does take him a tremendous amount of time to build up that spirit orb points. And that's why you really, really have to be certain of when you use that blow, because I think, as I pointed out before, as opposed to the previous Fatal Frame games, if you happen to miss with that power lens, it doesn't just allow you to, save those points. It really considers you having used that power, and even if you miss, those points are gone. Good news is that she is almost down. Though I do become a bit impatient here.
Close the chamber of thorns.
Not that I think you really have to worry at this point about running out of candle. I think since we're in this filter, the miasma isn't really so much of a problem, but still, it's just an overall tedious fight, and one we've had many times over.
No one will survive. No one.
There it is.
But unlike Miku, we find ourselves in a brand new location. I want to say it's somewhere in the Manor of Sleep itself, but it doesn't really match what we've seen previously. So where we need to head is towards that big stone door at the far end, but before you go rushing over there, there are 2 hidden ghosts in here on New Game Plus. The first one is going to be by this hole in the cave wall over here. Shows us what appears to be paper lanterns? But the second hidden ghost is a little bit more tricky, as there is a cutscene trigger near those stairs, but there is also the trigger for the hidden ghost. You just have to be very careful and inch your way forward, but if you are careful, you should be able to see it. Though the hidden ghost picture we get is pretty blurry, I'm not totally sure what that's supposed to be. Either way, though, I guess we should go ahead and press forward and see what's waiting for us behind that door.
My body feels so heavy. But what's going on here?
commandments. Impale her with the stake of tattoos. The rite of commandment must be conducted, sleeping undisturbed, for eternity. Oh. It can't be. Oh, it can't be.
And with that, we get our first morbid glimpse of the Chamber of Thorns, but more importantly, it seems that Kei's plan failed. Speaking of which, we should probably go check on Kei. I can only assume that he didn't get out of the dream world, but yeah, if we check downstairs, the good news is that he is still fine in a relative sense, so much as Miku is fine. Still, though, he is in pretty much the exact same state as Miku. He is stuck in the final stages of this quote-unquote disease that those that are stuck in the Manor of Sleep suffer from. It can only be a matter of time before he is sucked permanently away and spirited away, as so many other people before him have already been. Speaking of which, if you were playing on the initial playthrough, things would be a bit different, or if you didn't pick up those earrings in that picture from the previous night. Yeah, things are a little bit more grim for Kei, as, well, in the, well, I don't want to say normal ending, but in the initial ending that you get, Kei is spirited away and permanently dead at this point in the story. But for us, things are a little bit better off for Kei. He is not turned to dust. So, we're going to go ahead and use some of the information he left waiting behind for us. And first is this bit of writing that we can find inside of this bag. And while it isn't too much new information, it does bring up a few interesting points and will, I suppose, give us our final motivation, especially knowing now that the stakes were already in place for the tattooed priestess. Seems that our only other option is to send her across this sea of endless night that is located somewhere in the Kuze family shrine. Now, we already know where the body is, we just need to figure out some way to quote-unquote send it off. In addition to that, that tape that we gave to Kei on the previous night is now ready for us to listen to. And it has a somewhat familiar name on it, Otosuki. And that brings us right into the night time. And the first thing we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and listen to that tape we got.
Yes, I'm Kaname. Kaname Ototsuki. Snow was falling. There was a big manor, and inside it there was an old shrine. I could hear singing. She's in there. Reika is in there. No, further in. It was much deeper, darker, like somewhere underwater. No, I'm talking about my dream. But it was a very vivid dream. It was lifelike. I've heard that there was a place like this in the village where I was found. A place where you can meet the dead. Like a rift to the other side. There's a shrine there where you can offer up your pain. Huh? Yes, that's right. Kuze, the Kuze shrine. There, Reika accepted the tattoos. The pain. And in the end, I must go back to the manor. I've got to see Reika. If I see her, I don't know what I'll do. But if I don't go, she'll...
And just like that, we hear one of the many voices from beyond the grave. This time, though, of a very important character in the storyline, Kaname himself, Reika's lover, and probably a very key part to whatever happened with that ritual. Or at least with it going wrong.
I could just see you once more. Once more.
In addition to that, the spirit radio is suddenly being set off by something or other.
I know I can't see you again, but still, if I could just see you once more.
Yeah, a woman's voice is just repeating incessantly out of the radio.
I want to see you again. I know I can't see you again.
That means there is a good chance that there's something in the house that's setting it off.
I know I can't see you again.
So all we have to do is follow it around as it gets stronger and stronger. But we don't have to do too much searching, as I get a pretty strong feeling that it's pulling us towards Miku's room.
I know I can't see you again, but still, if I could just see you once more. Once more.
Don't worry, Miku.
One more time.
I'm still trying to figure something out to save us all.
I know I can't see you again,
But as we head over into the corner here, we do get our attention drawn to an attic that can be pretty easily missed throughout the course of the game. But that does mean there is one additional area of the house that we have not been into just yet.
just see you once more. Once more. Just one more time. I want to see you again. I know I can't see you again, but
It's a spacious little attic space.
if I could just see you once more. Once more. Just one more time. I want to see you again. I know I can't see you again, but
And as we head further into the corner here, the spirit radio does get a bit louder and louder.
once more. Just one more time.
As we investigate the corner, it suddenly shuts itself off. And hidden away in this assortment of boxes, we do find a very familiar, important item. It's that earring that the woman brushing gave to her child Kaname, and was supposed to be used as something of a keepsake and symbol of her love to him. Also, in addition to that, we can assume that it also has a pretty strong connection to Reika. Also, we find this pretty old manuscript here talking about the other world. And on the whole, it doesn't really bestow too much new information upon us. It just kind of goes over what appears to be a man gathering information from another source in regards to this mysterious manor in this gentleman's dreams. Now, the most important thing to gather from all of this is that there is a huge cave with a river flowing underneath it that seems to feed out into a large sea. And as you can probably guess, this is that Sea of Endless Night that we need to find. More importantly, though, as we head further to the end, we find that the person being interviewed is Kaname. The way we are able to decipher this is the fact that the final page mentions that whomever was doing the interviewing was a bit cut short due to the fact that Kaname suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. You can also kind of draw some conclusion that this was being written by Mr. XII, as it mentions his spirit radio. But we do find one more final film reel in here, and we find that name Otosuki yet again. And this is Kaname's, I guess, family name. It's never really mentioned beforehand, but all this really leaves a lot of questions open, like why all of this was already under Yu's ownership all along. But it does leave Rei to do some soul searching, especially in regards to this wanting to meet the dead, especially in regards to meeting Yu one last time. And we see a lot of parallels between Kaname and Reika. Yeah, at this point in the story, things seem pretty bleak all around for Rei. Both of her friends are pretty close to death, and, well, she is running very low on options. Especially considering all in all, with the pain of the tattoo, the horrible visions she's had to endure, and the fact that she was already pretty guilt-ridden and almost suicidal to begin with. Doesn't really look like we might be having a happy end after all. But, well, we're going to have to leave that for the next update, as we have done all we can for this night. Now, this is a weird camera angle. Yeah, not even a vanishing ghost can bring our spirits up. But hopefully you'll join me next time as we head into the penultimate update for Fatal Frame 3. See you then.